Okay, so let's get right into it. We need to talk about something that is, quite honestly, a renter's absolute worst nightmare. It's a situation I call the tenant trap. And if you're renting, or even just thinking about renting, this is something you absolutely need to know about.
This is the image that always sticks with me. It is, without a doubt, the hardest part of working in the property market. Watching a good family who did everything by the book, who paid their rent, lose their home anyway.
I've spent the last 5 years renovating and selling properties, so believe me, I've seen this happen up close. And it's brutal. This isn't some abstract, theoretical problem you read about. It is a real, devastating thing that can turn a family's life upside down. That's exactly why it's so critical we break down how this happens.
So, what is the tenant trap, really? Let's peel back the layers and look at the actual mechanics of how a perfectly responsible tenant can suddenly get an eviction notice on their door.
Here it is, plain and simple. Imagine this. You sign a lease, you pay your rent on the first of every month, you treat the place like it's your own, you're literally the ideal tenant. But here's the kicker. Your landlord, without you knowing, stops paying their mortgage. And just like that, you, your family, your home, it's all at risk. And you've done absolutely nothing wrong.
And this shows you the domino effect perfectly. It starts with the landlord. They miss their payments. Well, that sets off an alarm at the bank, which then moves to foreclose on the property to get its money back. And boom, that's when you, the tenant, are caught right in the crossfire. Your perfectly legal lease, suddenly, it's on very shaky ground.
Now this is where we get to the core of the problem, because what you have is a fundamental clash. It's a showdown between your right to have a roof over your head and the bank's right to secure its financial asset. This really just cuts right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The two sides have completely opposite goals. For you, the tenant, your priority is so simple, so human. You just need a place to live. But for the bank, it's all business. Their priority is a totally empty house. But why?
And there's your answer. It's pure economics. A vacant property is just easier to sell. It can be cleaned up, staged, and shown to buyers at a moment's notice. It avoids all the legal headaches of dealing with tenants and leases. The bottom line is, an empty house almost always sells faster and for more money. All of a sudden, your home has become a problem for the bank's bottom line.
This whole conflict really shines a light on a much bigger fragility in the housing market. And believe it or not, it's not just renters who are exposed to this kind of risk.
Think about it. You've got people who buy into new developments, right? They put down massive deposits for a home that isn't even built yet. They're putting all their faith in that developer to see the project through. But what happens if the developer defaults on their loans? Well, those buyers get caught in a very, very similar trap. Their investment, their future home, it's all just hanging by a thread.
And the financial hit can be absolutely staggering. Pre-construction buyers can get slammed with something called an appraisal gap. We're talking in some cases as much as $200,000. That's the difference between the price they agreed to pay and what the property is actually worth now that the project is in trouble. So they're stuck. Either walk away from a huge deposit or pay way over the odds for a property that's now worth far less. It's a huge gamble.
Okay, we've laid out the problem, and I know it's a scary one, but the whole point of this isn't to scare you, it's to arm you. It's about knowing what to do long before you ever hear that sound of a locksmith changing the locks on your front door.
Right. This is the big question, isn't it? In a system where you can do everything right and still be at risk of losing your home, what can you actually do? Well, the answer really comes down to one word: knowledge.
Your best bet is to be proactive. First things first, understand your lease agreement. I mean, really understand it. Look for any clauses about what happens if the property is sold. Second, get familiar with the basics of how foreclosure works. That way, you'll recognize the warning signs, like weird legal mail showing up for your landlord. Those are major red flags. Third, if you think something is up, don't wait around. Start asking questions early. And finally, and this is probably the most important, know your rights as a tenant where you live. In a place like Ontario, for instance, there are specific protections in place. Look up your local landlord and tenant board. Being aware is truly your best defense.
And so, all of this leaves us with this final, really essential question. When you have this complicated relationship between a tenant paying for a home and a bank financing that home, who should the system put first? Because right now, the answer you get isn't always the one that feels fair. It's definitely something to think about.